I once believed Amanda and I had the perfect marriage. 7 years of what I thought was bliss, building our dream home outside Boston, planning our future children's names. Then I found her tangled in our bed with my business partner. Instead of confrontation, I chose to vanish. New name, new state, new life. I left without a goodbye, becoming a ghost to everyone I knew. That was 6 years ago. Now she's found me again, showing up at my office with tears and old wedding photos. Before I tell you what happened next, where are you watching from? Hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. My name is Donald Thompson. 6 years ago, I was 34 and working as a software developer in Boston's thriving tech district. Life was good. I had a stable career, a nice apartment downtown, and enough savings to start thinking about buying a house. What I did not have was any intention of falling in love. That changed on a crisp October morning during my regular jog through Boston Public Garden. I remember the exact moment. I was focused on my running app, trying to beat my personal record when I rounded a corner and collided with a woman carrying a cup of coffee. The coffee exploded across my white running shirt, and her phone clattered to the ground. I should have been annoyed, but when I looked up into Amanda's startled hazel eyes, something clicked. She was mortified, dabbing at my shirt with a tissue while apologizing profusely. "I am so sorry, I was answering a work email. I should have been watching where I was going," she said, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "No worries," I replied, surprising myself with my calm. "I think your phone got the worst of it." I picked it up from the pathway, relieved to see it was still working. We stood there for a moment, an awkward silence settling between us, until I blurted out, "Can I buy you a replacement coffee?" She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Shouldn't I be the one buying you a new shirt?" By the end of that morning, we had exchanged numbers. By the end of the week, I had asked her to dinner at an upscale restaurant along the harbor. The conversation flowed so easily that the waitstaff had to politely inform us they were closing. Amanda worked as a marketing executive at a prestigious firm. She was ambitious, driven, and incredibly smart. She talked about campaigns she had developed for major brands, her eyes lighting up when she described her creative process. I told her about my work developing software for financial institutions, which sounded boring in comparison, but she asked insightful questions that made me see my own career through fresh eyes. What struck me most was how quickly we fell into step with each other. We shared similar values, both career-oriented, but dreaming of a family someday, both loving the city, but wanting space for a garden, both close with our parents, but fiercely independent. After 3 months of dating, I knew Amanda was different from anyone I had ever met. She had a warmth that drew people to her, a confidence that never veered into arrogance, and a way of making me feel like the most important person in any room. "You look at her like she hung the moon," my friend Jake commented after meeting her for the first time. I could not deny it. I was completely captivated by everything about Amanda Fletcher. 6 months after our first coffee collision, I was standing in a jewelry store examining diamond rings and wondering if it was too soon. My mother had given me my grandmother's ring, a beautiful vintage piece, but something told me Amanda would prefer something more modern, a reflection of our future rather than my past. I chose a platinum band with a princess-cut diamond, elegant but substantial. On Christmas Eve, I took her to the public garden where we had first met, now transformed by twinkling lights and a light dusting of snow. I had arranged for a string quartet to play in the gazebo, and as the first notes of her favorite song filled the air, I dropped to one knee. Her hands flew to her mouth, tears immediately welling in her eyes. "Donald, what are you doing, Amanda Fletcher? You quite literally knocked me off my path that day in October, and I never want to find my way back to a life without you. Will you marry me?" Her yes was barely audible through her tears, but the way she threw her arms around my neck spoke volumes. Later that night, we celebrated with her parents at their suburban home. Her father shook my hand firmly, his eyes misty. "Take care of my little girl," he said, and I promised him I would with every fiber of my being. We planned a spring wedding in the New Hampshire countryside. Amanda threw herself into the preparations, coordinating with vendors, selecting flowers, and designing invitations. I was happy to let her take the lead, interjecting only when she asked for my opinion. The day arrived with perfect weather sunshine, streaming through scattered clouds, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers. 200 guests watched as Amanda walked down the aisle in a gown that made her look like she had stepped out of a fairy tale. I promise to be your partner and equal to support your dreams as you support mine, to be honest and faithful in sickness and health for all the days of our lives. I vowed, meaning every word with my whole heart. Our honeymoon took us through the rolling hills of Italy's wine country. We spent 2 weeks exploring vineyards, sampling local cuisine, and making love in charming bed and breakfasts with views of ancient villages. It was perfect. We were perfect together. Back in Boston, we moved into our first apartment together. Weekends were spent browsing furniture stores, arguing good-naturedly over my preference for modern minimalism versus her love of cozy traditional pieces. We compromised on a style that was uniquely ours. Clean lines softened with comfortable textures, a home that reflected our merged lives. "This is just the beginning," Amanda said one evening as we sat on our new sofa takeout containers spread across our coffee table. "Just wait until we have our own house." I squeezed her hand, fully believing we were building something unshakable. The first 3 years of our marriage flew by in a whirlwind of career advancements and shared dreams. I was promoted to senior developer, then team lead, with each step bringing increased responsibility and compensation. Amanda was rising equally fast at her marketing firm, impressing clients with innovative campaigns and bringing in major new accounts. We were saving aggressively for a house while still enjoying city life, theater tickets, trendy restaurants, weekend trips to nearby coastal towns. For our 3rd anniversary, I surprised Amanda with a weekend at a luxury resort in Vermont. We hiked through autumn foliage, indulged in spa treatments, and talked seriously about our 5-year plan. "I think we should start looking at houses in the suburbs," Amanda suggested, as we sipped champagne on the resort's terrace. "Something with character, maybe a colonial or a Victorian." 6 months later, we were signing papers on a stunning colonial in Lexington with a spacious yard and the red door that Amanda had fallen in love with during our first viewing. The commute was longer, but worth it for the space and charm. Weekends once spent at trendy brunch spots were now dedicated to renovation projects and gardening. Amanda had an eye for design, transforming each room with just the right paint colors and furnishings. We hosted dinner parties where friends complimented our perfect partnership, the way we finished each other's sentences, anticipated each other's needs, created a home that was both sophisticated and welcoming. Behind closed doors, we mapped out our financial future, planning for children within the next 2 years. I remember the night we sat at our kitchen table with a bottle of wine discussing potential baby names. "If it is a girl, what do you think of Sophia?" Amanda asked, a soft smile playing on her lips. "I love it," I replied, reaching for her hand across the table. "And for a boy, maybe Benjamin, after my grandfather." She nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I cannot wait to start our family, Donald." Looking back, I wonder if she was already lying to me then. The changes were subtle at first. Amanda began mentioning strategy meetings that ran late into the evening. Her quarterly trips to New York became monthly, then weekly, always returning home exhausted, sometimes too tired, even for a hello kiss. A new colleague, Thomas Jenkins, entered her regular conversation. Thomas thought this campaign approach would work better. Thomas had connections with potential clients. Thomas had invited her to an industry networking event. I thought nothing of it initially. Amanda had always been dedicated to her career, and networking was important in marketing. But then came new patterns, a sudden interest in fitness, leading to an expensive membership at an exclusive gym, a complete wardrobe overhaul featuring designers I had never heard her mention before, a new hairstyle, a different perfume. Our weekends together dwindled as she begged off traditional Sunday brunches, with our friends claiming work pressure and deadlines. Her phone, once casually left on countertops or coffee tables, was now always in her hand or pocket. I noticed the passwords had changed when I tried to use her phone to order takeout one night when mine was charging. "Oh, work security protocols," she explained with a dismissive wave. "We have to change passwords every 30 days now." Then came the credit card statements with charges from hotels on days she had told me she was working late at the office. Dinner receipts for 2 at restaurants I had never visited, a jewelry purchase that I never saw her wear. Our physical intimacy, once passionate and frequent, dwindled to occasional perfunctory encounters. She was always too tired, too stressed, had an early meeting a headache. I felt knots forming in my stomach whenever she mentioned Thomas's name. I planned a surprise anniversary dinner at her favorite restaurant only for her to call at the last minute, canceling because of an emergency client meeting. In her purse left on the kitchen counter that weekend, I found theater tickets for a night she had told me she was working late. My colleague Michael mentioned seeing Amanda downtown with a man during work hours, both laughing intimately over lunch. When I casually brought this up, her reaction was immediately defensive. "Are you having me followed? That was a client lunch. I cannot believe you do not trust me." I began working longer hours myself, diving into coding projects to distract from the worries gnawing at me. I told myself I was imagining problems, that all marriages go through phases, that her career was just demanding more of her time temporarily. When an opportunity came to fly to San Francisco to finalize a contract with a major new client, I jumped at it. 3 days away would give us both some space, and I could return with perspective. The meetings were scheduled to run through our 7th wedding anniversary, but I planned to wrap things up early and surprise her. I finished my presentations a day ahead of schedule, impressing the clients with efficient solutions to their security concerns. Before heading to the airport, I stopped at a jewelry store and purchased an expensive diamond bracelet, a peace offering of sorts, though I was not entirely sure what I was apologizing for. The red-eye flight landed me in Boston early morning on our anniversary. I took a cab straight home, planning to surprise Amanda with breakfast in bed and the gift. Our house was quiet when I entered, but her car was in the driveway. I assumed she was sleeping in, as it was Saturday. I moved silently up the stairs, the small jewelry box tucked in my jacket pocket. As I reached the top landing, I heard sounds coming from our bedroom, muffled voices. Then a laugh I recognized as Amanda's, but with a tone I had never heard before. Time seemed to slow as I approached the partially open door. Each step felt like moving through molasses, my brain struggling to process what my instincts already knew. I stood in the doorway, frozen in place, as the scene burned itself into my memory. Amanda was in our bed, our marriage bed tangled in sheets, with a man I recognized immediately as Thomas Jenkins. Her head was thrown back in pleasure, his mouth on her neck, their bodies moving together in a rhythm that told me this was far from their first encounter. It was Amanda who noticed me first. Her eyes widened in horror, her body going rigid. Thomas followed her gaze and jerked away from her, scrambling to cover himself with the sheet. "Donald," she gasped. "Oh my God, you are supposed to be in San Francisco." I said nothing. I could not speak. I felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath my feet, leaving me suspended in a void of disbelief and betrayal. Thomas gathered his clothes with frantic movements, dressing hurriedly while avoiding eye contact. He slipped past me in the doorway, mumbling something that might have been an apology. The front door slammed seconds later, leaving Amanda and me in a silence so complete I could hear the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. "I can explain," she finally said, tears already streaming down her face as she pulled on a robe. "It is not what you think." I found myself oddly calm, though I could feel a hurricane of emotion building inside me. "Then what is it exactly?" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. It did not mean anything. "How long?" I asked, still standing in the doorway, unwilling to step further into the room that now felt contaminated. She hesitated, then whispered, "It does not matter. It was nothing. How long?" Each word fell like a stone. Her shoulders slumped. 6 months, she admitted. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Through Christmas. Through my birthday. Through every "I love you" and "good night," and "I cannot wait to start our family." The questions poured out of me then. Where had they met? Hotels during her business trips. Our home when I worked late. Did she love him? Was she planning to leave me? Her answers tumbled out between sobs. It was just physical attraction, meaningless. A mistake she regretted. Instantly, but could not stop repeating. She begged for another chance, promised therapy, whatever I needed to rebuild trust. I walked out without another word, checking into a hotel nearby. I silenced my phone but could see the notifications piling up: calls, texts, voicemails. By morning, there were 27 missed calls and dozens of messages ranging from desperate apologies to angry accusations that I was being unreasonable by not talking it through. I called in sick to work for the first time in years. I could not face colleagues, could not concentrate, could not pretend that my world had not just imploded. The next day, I returned to the house while Amanda was at work, needing space to think without her tearful presence. In the quiet of our home office, I found myself opening her desk drawer, searching for what evidence confirmation clarity. I found her journals, leather-bound books I had given her each Christmas, thinking she used them for work. Notes. The entries told a different story than her tearful confession. Thomas was not her first affair during our marriage. He was not even her second. There were names I recognized, a client, our neighbor, even a friend's husband. Clinical descriptions of encounters in hotel rooms, at conferences, once even in my car. In the back of the journal was a folder containing bank statements for accounts. I had no knowledge of credit cards maxed out behind my back. Nearly $30,000 of debt she had hidden from me. Another folder held fertility test results, showing she had secretly stopped trying for the baby we had discussed for years. The final blow came from a printed screenshot of a group chat with her friends, including couples we socialized with regularly. "Poor Donald has no clue," one message read. "I almost told him when he kept talking about baby names last month," Amanda had replied. "But why ruin a good thing? He is so busy with work he will never catch on." They had all known. Every dinner party, every holiday gathering, every casual Sunday brunch, they had all known I was being deceived. I sat in our kitchen at midnight, all the evidence spread before me, and felt a strange clarity wash over me. This marriage was not what I thought. These friends were not real. This life was a carefully constructed illusion that had just shattered beyond repair. Over the next 48 sleepless hours, I formulated a plan. I consulted an attorney friend via encrypted email, careful to use my work computer rather than any shared devices. I calculated what I legally owed versus what was rightfully mine alone. I set up new bank accounts under my legal name. I transferred my legitimate assets, leaving the joint accounts untouched. I applied for jobs across the country, securing a position at a smaller tech startup in Denver under the name Donald Miller. My middle name and my mother's maiden name. Not technically illegal to use professionally. I put down a cash deposit on an apartment site unseen. On my final night, I drove slowly through our neighborhood, memorizing the contours of the life I had built and was now abandoning. I packed only what I could fit in my car clothes, important documents, a few photographs from before Amanda, my grandfather's watch. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter, alongside the house keys and a note with the attorney's contact information for handling the divorce proceedings. I did not say goodbye. I did not confront her with what I had discovered. I simply disappeared from the life of Donald Thompson, becoming a ghost to everyone who had known me. My first months in Denver were a blur of sparse rooms and sleepless nights. The small startup welcomed my expertise, not questioning why someone with my credentials would leave a prestigious Boston firm for lower pay and fewer benefits. I grew a beard, changed my hairstyle, bought an entirely new wardrobe in styles I had never worn before. I became someone else. Nights were the hardest. I would lie awake, questioning my decision, wondering if I should have stayed and fought. Confronted Amanda with the evidence made her face our friends who had participated in her deception. But each time I remembered the look on her face, when she realized I had discovered her not remorse for her actions but fear of being caught. I found a therapist, Dr. Marshall, and committed to twice-weekly sessions. "What you did was unusual," he acknowledged during our first meeting, "but trauma sometimes requires radical action. Now we need to ensure you are running toward healing, not just away from pain." I learned to introduce myself as Donald Miller, to sign my name with a different flourish, to tell simplified versions of my past that contain no lies but omitted significant chapters. The first Thanksgiving alone, I ordered Chinese takeout and watched football in my underwear, alternating between feeling liberated and profoundly alone. Christmas was worse. I declined invitations from colleagues, unwilling to intrude on family gatherings or explain my lack of holiday traditions. I joined a hiking club in January, forcing myself into social interaction even when it felt impossibly difficult. The mountains around Denver became my sanctuary, the physical exertion clearing my mind of circular thoughts about what I had left behind. Small victories accumulated the first dinner party I attended, without feeling like an imposter. The first date where I did not compare her to Amanda. The first genuine laugh that caught me by surprise with its authenticity. After my promotion 6 months in, I moved to a better apartment in a livelier neighborhood. I made a genuine friendship with my coworker Ryan, who shared my interest in mountain climbing and never pressed when I kept details of my past vague. I attempted dating, but the walls I had built were too high, the trust too damaged. Women sensed my guardedness and eventually stopped calling. A breakthrough came during a therapy session 18 months after my disappearance. "You need to forgive yourself," Dr. Marshall said. "Not her, not yet, but yourself for believing the lies, for not seeing the signs, for choosing to leave rather than confront." I began journaling, tracking my emotional recovery through raw, honest entries that helped me process the betrayal. My weekend mountain climbing evolved from escape to genuine passion, the achievement of each summit a metaphor for the obstacles I was overcoming. By my 3-year work anniversary in Denver, I felt settled. I had been promoted to development director. I had a small circle of friends who accepted my private nature. I had learned to cook properly, adopted a rescue dog, and even contemplated telling Ryan the truth about my past. Then came the LinkedIn message from an anonymous account, a photo of Amanda and me on our wedding day with the text, "I know it's you, Donald. We need to talk. I've changed." Panic seized me in the office bathroom after reading the message. How had she found me? What did she want? Would she expose my deception to my new colleagues, my new friends? A detailed email followed, explaining how she had tracked my career through industry publications where my work was mentioned. She claimed years of therapy had changed her, that she deserved a second chance, that what we had was too special to throw away. She included details. Only she would know the name of my childhood dog, the song playing during our first kiss, my mother's recipe for apple pie that I had once claimed I would pay $1 million to taste again. I resigned that day, citing a family emergency. I packed my apartment hastily, leaving furniture and most possessions behind. I drove overnight to Chicago, constantly checking my rearview mirror, as if she might be following. I started over yet again. Third city, third job. Reduced salary at a smaller tech company, another sparsely furnished apartment. For 2 years, I lived in Chicago without incident. I was more careful this time. No industry events, no professional photos, minimal social media presence, even under my assumed name. I thought perhaps she had given up. Then came the web development conference in Seattle. My company insisted I attend as our representative. I took precautions, registering under my company's name rather than my own, booking a different hotel than the conference recommended, arriving a day late. None of it mattered. On the second evening, as I waited for an elevator in the hotel lobby, I spotted her across the atrium watching. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, but unmistakably, Amanda. Our eyes met, and she moved toward me with purpose, tears already forming. "Donald," she called loud enough to turn heads. "Please just talk to me." I stepped into the elevator as it opened, frantically pushing the close button. She reached the doors just as they were shutting, pushing her hand through and causing them to reopen. She grabbed my arm, creating a scene as hotel security approached. "Sir, is everything all right?" the security guard asked, noting my obvious distress. "This woman is harassing me," I stated firmly. "I do not know her." "He is lying," Amanda insisted. "He is my husband. He disappeared 6 years ago without a word." The confusion allowed me to extract myself and retreat to my room, where I immediately checked out and changed my flight. Back in Chicago, I found flowers waiting at my apartment door with a note, "You cannot run forever." What we had was real. Through a former colleague from Boston who had remained neutral during my disappearance, I learned Amanda had hired a private investigator after I vanished. She had never remarried, telling everyone she was still legally tied to me. The search for me had become an obsession, her way of avoiding responsibility for destroying our marriage. After 6 years of running, I realized I had created an endless cycle: build a life, be discovered, flee, repeat. I was building walls instead of healing, allowing her actions to control my life long after I had physically removed myself from her presence. The next time she contacted me an email to my work address, I responded, arranging a meeting on my terms at a busy Chicago coffee shop where I felt secure. I arrived early, selecting a table with clear sightlines to exits, feeling both terrified and strangely empowered. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. She was thinner, with fine lines around her eyes that had not been there before, but she carried herself with the same confidence that had first attracted me. She had clearly planned her appearance: carefully conservative dress, minimal makeup, hair styled simply, all designed to project the image of someone stable and changed. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice controlled, despite the emotion in her eyes. "I was not sure you would come." I nodded but said nothing, studying her like the stranger she had become. She launched into what felt like a rehearsed speech about her transformation: years of intensive therapy, support groups, the rock bottom she had hit after my disappearance. She produced divorce papers showing me she had legally ended things with Thomas, whom she had briefly married after I left. "Losing you was the wake-up call I needed," she said, tears threatening to spill. "What we had was real, Donald. I know I destroyed your trust, but people can change. I have changed." I listened quietly, noting how she emphasized her pain, her journey, her growth, still centering herself in the narrative of our relationship. When she finished, I spoke calmly. "I believe that you believe you have changed. But trust once broken so completely cannot be repaired. I have built a new life. I am not the same person who left Boston 6 years ago." Her expression shifted subtly, desperation creeping into her eyes as she sensed my resolution. "You cannot just throw away 7 years of marriage. We took vows, for better or worse, remember." "You threw it away," I replied evenly. "Every time you chose to lie. Every time you betrayed our vows. Every time you laughed about my ignorance with your friends." Her face paled. "You knew about that. I found everything before I left. The journals, the bank statements, the group chats." Something hardened in her expression, then a glimpse of the real Amanda breaking through the carefully constructed facade of remorse. "So you just ran away, like a coward." Without even giving me a chance to explain, "There was nothing to explain," I said, rising from my chair. "There still isn't. Do not contact me again, Amanda. There is no future for us." As I walked away, her voice rose, creating the scene I had anticipated. 6 years. I spent 6 years trying to find you, trying to make things right, and you just walk away again. I did not turn back. For the first time since discovering her betrayal, I felt truly free. Back in my apartment, I drafted a final email, establishing legal boundaries, then forwarded it to my attorney friend who had helped me disappear years ago. He would handle the formal documentation, the cease and desist order, the threat of legal action if she continued pursuing me. This time, I chose to remain in Chicago. Running had not solved anything. It had only postponed the inevitable confrontation. I opened up to my closest friend about my entire history, relief washing over me as I shared the burden I had carried alone for so long. Months later, I met Sarah from the design team at work. Our relationship developed, slowly built on honesty from the beginning. I shared my past trauma, my trust issues, my real name, and history. She listened without judgment, respecting my boundaries and sharing her own painful experiences with deception. "We all have ghosts," she said. "The difference is whether we let them haunt us or acknowledge them and move forward." A year later, I reconnected with my parents, introducing them to Sarah over a family dinner that began awkwardly but ended with genuine laughter. 2 years into our relationship, I proposed at the Chicago lakefront, offering not just my heart, but my authentic self, flaws and fears included. Looking back at the 6 years since I ghosted my life in Boston, I understand now that running from Amanda was actually running from myself, from the pain of acknowledging that what I believed was real had been an illusion. I had to forgive myself for not seeing the signs, for believing the lies, for choosing escape over confrontation. True healing came not from distance, but from facing my fears. The freedom I sought was not found in new cities or identities, but in reclaiming my self-worth and establishing boundaries that protected it. Leaving was not cowardice. It was self-preservation at a time when I had no other tools to cope with such profound betrayal. I learned that real love begins with respect for yourself and for your partner. Amanda never respected me enough to be honest, to be faithful, to treat our vows as sacred. Sarah shows her love through consistent respect for who I am, including my past and the scars it left. Our wedding is planned for next spring, a small ceremony with only those who know our authentic selves. There will be no shadows of past mistakes, no ghosts hovering at the edges of our celebration. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted the betrayal head-on or made a clean break, like I did? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. And if you know someone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose yourself, even when it means walking away, share this video with them. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to start over.